for Lexington and Parkland rise first.
Fourth time's a charm, Mr. Speaker. Thank you so much. So I appreciate the comments from the member from Highlands Norwood. And we're talking about referendums. So again, out in our community, and I appreciate the member from Highlands Norwood has taken emails from a few different constituencies across the province. With this whole recent election thing and me getting vocal on a few stages in the social media, it's amazing how many comments I get. And it's not just from my own area either. It's across Canada, and I mean, this message starts to get out there. And the seriousness of what we're talking about, a lot of the references being made here, and I'm not sure if it's meant to, elicit emotion or to give some cognitive ability or concerns about what might happen if. So let's just go down that rabbit hole a bit. What would happen if we put together a fair deal panel and we went across the province and we put up a web page and it became a national news story that actually had people putting their comments and their feedback to you? And then what would happen if we had a COVID event that took place that kind of derailed what the original plans were a bit? And then what would happen if you had a bunch of feedback and then everyone was wanting the details of this report? Well, all of a sudden, Mr. Speaker, we have the details of this report out. And some of the items that the members are fixated on here were actually in that report that they were requesting and demanding at one point. They wanted to come forward. So again, this wasn't a partisan item. It wasn't just my constituents, the 68 or 70% that picked me over the former Ag and Forestry Minister who had all the consultation out there and who was from the former party, or from the former government party. This was right across from the whole province. And they went to each region, and each region has their own type of, feel or flavor, I guess, of what matters to them. And one of the items that came up was the CPP. That was one of the items that came up, as was energy corridors, as was a bunch of other items. So the fact that we're contemplating that potentially this matters so much that we wouldn't want to make that decision in isolation, and given that we are in a democratic society and given that referendums seem to have a pretty good turnout, no different than we had with the Fair Deal panel and the solicitation and what people get from social media, that maybe that question should be put to folks. Now, I've heard a lot of reasons that, oh my gosh, there might be money spent and actually might influence people. Yeah, well, there's money spent every single day on the television, radio, etc., that influences people. And we hear lots of partisan groups that come out and talk about that on the radio, whether it's the teacher's pension, whether it's the AFL, whether it's this Gil McGowan fella that I hope to meet someday. There's tons of information that's out there. So that might sway or influence, I would love that, would sway or influence the voters. But you know what, Mr. Speaker? I like the fact that the voters are savvy enough that they can read through the BS and cut through the buckwheat and everything else we want to use out there, and they actually make their own decision. So the fact that when we have something important enough to have a referendum to do it, absolutely. That's something that I would support. That's what I hear across the country, and that's what I hear from my constituents, and also from people that are potentially in Highlands Norwood. So as an example, if we were going to suppose and go down that rabbit hole, let's say, for example, I abut City of Edmonton, which I do, and now this social media presence. Why is it that I keep getting called by the Chinese business community to go down to Chinatown and talk to those folks because they don't have any representation from their MLAs? They had massive concerns over the harm reduction sites. They had massive concerns over what was happening with their businesses, and they're not getting representation. They even had petitions that weren't heard. They were essentially, in their own words, steamrolled over by their own local municipal councillors. So when I'm having engagement with them, I'm telling them politics matters. The advertisements that you might be reading and hearing out there may not be representative of the truth. You have to dig in yourself and do it. If you want to get people out there, you got to get involved. So no different than the member from Highlands Norwood had pointed out. But I'm getting calls from potentially her area because those folks aren't being heard there either. So with this, having a referendum, you're going to have people that actually show up and care. And you know what happens when people show up and care? They have better representation, because we're getting more people to show it that's more representative of the area. And if we put something critical on that ballot because we feel that the Alberta people should make that choice, not just us as democratic representation or at that level, but more of a democratic item where it's direct democracy, that they can put that X beside what matters to them. And more people show up, and if some of the existing, somebody was mentioning the Calgary mayor, so let's say, for example, down that rabbit hole, more people showed up and didn't vote him in. Maybe that's an unintended consequence that is actually better representative of the province. So if that's something that comes out of referendum, yes, some of the members opposite might be a little concerned because the Alberta people will get a chance to speak again, and I think that's really the biggest concern. When we get to it, the more people that come up and show up and vote, the more of a chance we have the direct items that come up and make sense for them, and that's why they're heckling and that's why they're nervous. Thank you.